This will be part 5 of my Outlander Season 7, Episode 11 review. If you are looking to avoid spoilers from the books or the TV show, please do keep on scrolling. So at the party at 17 Chestnut Street, Captain Richardson makes an appearance, and this character is very interesting in the books, specifically the most recent book, Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. And so I'm curious how they're going to both condense his storyline and how much of it they're going to hint at now versus the next season, and if they're going to wrap it up in any way, since the most recent book is where a lot of this information actually comes to light. But spoiler, he is a time traveler. It's always been clear in the books when he was first introduced that Captain Richardson was up to something. It was a warning that Hal Grey gave to William because Captain Richardson is sending him out on missions and not disclosing what the missions are necessarily for. But as book readers, we eventually find out that he is having William pass notes and letters to rebels, and eventually he will switch sides. And in the books, we learn that he traveled back in time for one main purpose, and it was to, obviously like Claire and Jamie, change the outcome of the Revolutionary War, but he is trying to basically go back to end slavery sooner in America. So he starts off as a British officer and on the side of the British in order to help them win the war, but then he quickly becomes a turncoat and tries to infiltrate the American side of the war with the same goal in mind. And again, there is another creator on here. I'm so bad at this. I don't know her name, but she did a video about Captain Richardson. I can certainly do one as well, but knowing that he's a time traveler in this scene with Claire is very important, but the show obviously has not provided that information, so this is obviously a spoiler. But he does tell Claire in this scene that he is a spy, and again, this doesn't come to light until the most recent book, and right now we're kind of in between An Echo in the Bone and Written in My Own Heart's Blood, so they're fast forwarding that plot point quite a bit. But I also think it helps because now every time you see Richardson on screen, you'll know that he is a shadier character than you might have originally believed. And in the books, he is actually largely targeting the Grey family. So for him to be asking Claire to essentially spy on Lord John in this way makes total sense. And Claire basically tells him, no, go screw, and I'm not doing that. But now he knows that she is still very much loyal to the rebel cause despite being married to Lord John. I think this whole interaction reminded me very much of when Claire and Jamie were in France and they were kind of playing both sides in the same way. So we're back in that sort of realm of deception here. This is presumably the next day, and Claire and Lord John are upstairs. This is Claire's room that we've seen her in multiple times. And Lord John brings a stack of letters that are most likely all invitations to events that they are expected to go to. And we hear him say that they should at least go to one. So again, I think it's very clear now, hopefully, that Lord John is very accommodating to Claire's needs. And even though he expects her to join him and be a wife to him, he's also throwing her a bone here by saying we don't have to go to all of the events in this stack of letters. We can go to one. And Claire agrees. Now there's an important moment in here where Lord John is looking at the stack of the letters, and he says that he receives a letter from Colonel Graves. And this becomes very important in what will likely transpire at the beginning of episode 12, because he doesn't get a chance to read this letter, and that will come up again the next time we see Lord John, because he will carry this letter in his pocket and have it on his person in the next episode. And of course, he didn't get a chance to read it because Jamie bursts through the door. I loved the audio choices in this scene because as Claire and Lord John are talking, you can hear Mrs. Figg yelling at someone in the background, like a muffled yell, and then the sound of footsteps coming up the stairs, and then of course Jamie enters the room. And both Claire and Lord John quite literally look like they've seen a ghost. Hopefully for people who were wondering if Jamie actually died, this was a big scene for you, and it landed in a great way. I think this is very accurate to the books. He just barges into the house and appears, and both Claire and Lord John are completely caught off guard. I really loved the shaky camera work here as well, because as Claire gets up, the camera is kind of shaky. As we see them embrace, the camera is shaky. As we cut to Lord John and his reaction to seeing Jamie, all of that adds to this feeling of all of them almost kind of being so distraught about the whole thing. I think it was a very smart choice cinematically. And in this moment, Claire says a line from the books where she says, "There it is," and Jamie asks her what, and she says, "My blood," which might come across as a strange thing to say in this moment if you haven't read the books, but in the books we got a lot more moments again in her thoughts where she makes comments about how the news of Jamie's passing almost made her feel like all the blood left her body, and she makes a lot of references to that. So that was a payoff for that. I don't know if it lands as well if you haven't read the books and know that that's a thought she's been having this whole time that he's been away from her. And I just love the framing of this scene and seeing Lord John just distraught and in shock, wondering what the heck Jamie is doing in his house, followed by just this look of adoration on his face. And I will sing the praises of David Barry and Katrina Balfe forever for this episode. I really, really commend them for how great a job they did here with both of their characters. Jamie gives an explanation that the ship he was scheduled to come over on, the Euterpe, was supposed to leave at nighttime, and the captain got a little too confident that he could leave earlier, and obviously we know what happens to the ship. So Jamie's belongings were all on the ship, but he was not. So that is how the question of whether or not he actually died on board came into play. In the books, he comes over with his sister Jenny. I really don't know if the show is going to do that storyline. It doesn't seem like they are, because I feel like in this moment he would have maybe mentioned that Jenny came with him, but we'll have to see. I'm not 100% convinced that it's not happening, but I largely feel like it's not. And Lord John Grey says to him, "You probably should get out of here," because Jamie tells Claire that he already has soldiers after him, and he is then told by Lord John that William will be home soon. And this is a change from the books about how they approach this reveal, but one that I actually really liked. Because on the other side of the door, overhearing the conversation, is William. And this is how he finds out that Jamie is his father. And in the books, he just runs into Jamie in the hallway, and because they look so similar, he just knows in his gut that this is his dad, and he questions him because of their resemblance. Obviously in the show they don't have that much of a resemblance. They do in some ways, but not like it's described in the books. So I think this was a very smart way of revealing that Jamie is his dad to William. Immediately everyone starts going into crisis mode, especially Lord John, because his whole world is imploding in this moment. Like, Jamie's return is both the best news that he's received in a long time, but it causes a lot of really bad news immediately after. And when William questions who Jamie is, he very proudly announces his name, and William says, "Well, then who the hell am I?" All of the dialogue about him being a stinking papist, that is all direct from the books. And I really do commend Charles for how he handled this scene, because it's meant to showcase that he has Jamie Fraser's anger and that he can get lit off like a fuse just like Jamie can. And he does a great job of watching that build in him as he starts to piece together all of these moving parts and figure out who's lied to him his whole life about his parentage. As I predicted, he ends up giving Jamie back his rosary beads, just like he does in the books. This, again, is a slight change, but I like how this was handled. And Claire is just heartbroken for both boys. I loved Sam's acting in this. I think this was a great reflective moment for Jamie. And when the troops come in to capture him again, he needs an exit plan. So just like in the books, he holds Lord John with his gun and escapes with him, holding him hostage, essentially. Poor Lord John is then forced to leave his home, leave William there, and is with Jamie with the knowledge that he has just slept with his wife. The next episode will have a lot of scenes between just Jamie and Lord John that I am very much looking forward to. A lot is going to happen in episode 12. And like a nice neat bow at the end of the episode, this is the final look we get at Claire, who cannot believe what's just happened in front of her, but is also just so happy that her husband is alive. Great episode, one of my favorites so far this season, by far.